Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us here at Kentucky Children's Hospital and UK Healthcare. Today's really a momentous occasion, and one of our core beliefs at Kentucky Children's Hospital is that healthy children grow up to be healthy adults. Growing up in a healthy home is really a foundation and a core. This is kind of that holistic health, from physical, from emotional, and social well-being. Kentucky ranks 14th in the country for child abuse and neglect. In 2022, 1,146 children suffered physical abuse and 756 were victims of sexual abuse. Those numbers have decreased over the years, and a lot of that's really been through the collaborative efforts. And if people have heard me speak, I apologize. I'm going to say the same thing all the time, is that actually very little is done when we're sitting in these speaking engagements. The most of it's done in circles, and the circles that are brought together, a lot led by our government officials, but also led by so many people coming together for one purpose. And through the efforts of organizations like CoSARE for Kids, the support of our community partners and organizations, healthcare, law enforcement, that's really making a difference. Those still are bad statistics, though. Those are statistics that we have to do something about. Last year, we were right here, we celebrated the ribbon cutting of the CoSARE for Kids Center for Safe and Healthy Children. And if you get to stick around, you'll get to see a little bit of it. That has been a transformational space. You know, what's interesting is that space came about as they were recruiting people, because a big part of what it is, and through Dr. Howard's leadership, has been recruiting the people. Because if you build a building and you don't have anybody in it, the house collapses. And so she was already building a massive program, and that program now has a beautiful home for kids to be safe. And as you can see, one of the biggest employees right there, the therapy dog, right? It's just overworked, resting. But it was really through a gift of $2 million from CoSARE for Kids that made just such a pivotal moment in investment in our community. And when you make that investment, it's not just in Lexington. It is in every single county in this state. Through that, we have developed core curriculum for the Department of Community-Based Services, led a multi-hour training to class for Kentucky State Police Cadet. And this manual, is the newest tool in our toolbox for combating violence in the homes of children. We will change generational cycles. We will change that merry-go-round that you hear about often. Now today I have an honor to introduce a gentleman who has talked about the health of Kentucky and the generations and how things are going to make a difference. He's talked about it for quite a while, actually. And I think today we have a fortunate of having Kentucky's 52nd Attorney General, Russell Coleman, here. He spent most of the past 2 decades in public service. He was the United States Attorney for the Western District of Kentucky, serving as the Chief Federal Law Enforcement Officer for Kentucky's 53 western counties, ranging from Louisville to the Jackson Purchase region. He previously served as a state prosecutor and as a legal counsel to U.S. Senator Mitch McConnell. A former FBI special agent, he was assigned to multiple field offices and served a temporary assignment in Iraq. He was raised in Graves, Davies, and Logan County. He received both his undergraduate and law degrees from the University of Kentucky. There you go. Did you watch the game? Oh, yeah. He lives in Oldham County with his wife, Ashley, and their 3 children. Most important, he's a father, and he's a guy that's truly invested in the future of Kentucky. So it is no greater honor for me than to introduce Attorney General Russell Coleman.
Thank you, and thank you, Dr. Day, for hosting today's incredibly important event. As physician in charge of this incredible facility, he may have a better title than I do, and so I'm a little bit jealous. I tell you what, this is about collaboration. We have assembled a collaborative team in word as well as deed of medical professionals, of law enforcement, of advocates, of prosecutors, to take on one of Kentucky's most pressing challenges. Now, our office has prioritized tackling domestic violence, bringing it out of the shadows. Today, we are releasing Kentucky's first ever strangulation resource manual to equip our Commonwealth with the tools to combat this particularly gruesome and deadly crime. And we're going to talk about that. We're building on the leadership of our General Assembly that elevated this offense back in 2019. And now it's time that we help prosecutors operationalize that to be more impactful on the prevention and, yes, on the deterrence front. This hits close to home. So many times the challenges we talk about from podiums like this, whether it's the drug epidemic, whether it's violence, or whether it's the challenges of intimate partner violence with strangulation, it's not that state or that neighborhood or that family anymore. It's us. These challenges that we talk about, you don't just point and say over there, that community. This hits close to home. Just last September, a UK student reported that she was raped, strangled, and sexually assaulted here in Lexington. The victim found expert care right here at UK Hospital, and the offender was arrested and the offender was charged right here. People who strangle, and if there's a takeaway from our few minutes other than the collaborative nature of this effort, remember this. People who strangle are some of the most dangerous criminals we face. The data is chilling. Quoting from a November 2022 Police Chief magazine, I quote, "It used to be thought that all abusers were equal. They are not. Research has now made clear that when a man puts his hands around a woman's neck, he has just raised his hand and said, 'I am a killer.' He's more likely to kill police officers, to kill children, and to later kill his partner. So when you hear 'he choked me,' now you know you're at the edge of a homicide." Quoting from Police Chief magazine, 2022, November. Unpacking this data, strangulation is one of the most accurate predictors for the subsequent homicide of victims of domestic violence. It's the biggest clue that a murder will take place. The majority of police officers, those that we lose in the line of duty, are killed by men who have strangled women. And this is according to the Training Institute on Strangulation Prevention. It doesn't take much to cause real damage. Think of a firm handshake. It only takes about 1/3 of that pressure to injure a larynx, cause bleeding, bruising, and swelling. And the effects of strangulation, they don't end when the offender takes his hand off of a victim's throat. Some of the signs can be seen, and this is important. This is why this is so important. Some of the signs can be seen. Some are patent, bloodshot eyes, bruises on the neck, but many symptoms cannot be seen, and many of these symptoms haunt victims for months to come. For too long, our colleagues in emergency departments and our colleagues in law enforcement face too many limiting factors to investigating and successfully prosecuting these offenses. There weren't real solutions. That ends today with this great work product. This manual has the resources and the guidance to help Kentucky professionals protect and serve victims, and for us in law enforcement to go after the perpetrators. This manual helps law enforcement and medical professionals see the signs of strangulation, both the visible and the non-visible. It shares strategies to effectively prosecute cases under Kentucky law, and again, thanks to the General Assembly, enhanced Kentucky law since 2019, and it empowers advocates. There's some of those in this room that do that incredible work. Helps victim advocates as they engage with victims of this specific crime. Now, Kentucky's Strangulation Resource Manual is the first of its kind anywhere in the nation. And let's just pause that if there's any applause line in anything I say. First of its kind right here in Kentucky. Now, with this resource, other states can now look to Kentucky as an example of how to address this serious crime. Our office will distribute this manual to every prosecutor's office in the Commonwealth. It'll also be posted online at our website, ag.ky.gov. That's ag.ky.gov. We'll also be distributing this to every chief of police and every sheriff's office in the Commonwealth. Pass this on. Share this with your colleagues. Share this resource. It's said that abusers use strangulation for power and control. And once they learn this, they will not stop. Well, I couldn't be prouder to sit here in a moment with partners who have contributed more than a year of their lives to change that dynamic in this manual, to help make those abusers stop, to prevent those abusers. I'm confident their efforts will protect victims and help us prosecute criminals. I could not be more grateful, more excited to share this stage. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, now I'm going to introduce someone who's had a lot of hats at the University of Kentucky. And so Dr. Robert DePaula joined UK in 2016 as the Dean of the College of Medicine, Vice President for Clinical Academic Affairs, and then in 2022 he was named the Provost for the University of Kentucky. He has seen a transformation not only in our healthcare campus, but our academic campus that continues to catapult to be able to serve Kentucky. He now serves as the Provost and the Co-Executive Vice President of Health Affairs. Please help me welcome Dr. DePaula.
Thank you all, and good morning, and certainly thank you for everybody joining us as well. It is with deep appreciation that we welcome our partners from the Office of the Attorney General, for the Commonwealth of Kentucky, the Louisville Metro Police Department, COSAIR Charities, and our team members here at UK and UK Healthcare who work every single day tirelessly advocating for our Kentucky's families. At UK Healthcare, our ultimate vision is to, and we say it a lot, to advance Kentucky in all we do, in all different aspects, through a focus on multiple key principles. One, enhancing Kentucky and UK Healthcare's ability to serve the state as a resource for advanced subspecialty care and services so that patients don't need to and families don't need to go out of the state for those services, and especially advanced subspecialty care services. Strengthening local health care by establishing a comprehensive care strategy for our people and our partners across the Commonwealth. And third, growing an academic health system aligning clinical care, education, and research in terms of discovery for new standards of care. In October, for example, we hosted an annual retreat of our Board of Trustees. After comprehensive discussions about the health of Kentucky, including dimensions such as well-being, quality of life, economic vitality, by growing and sustaining a skilled workforce, the following principles were proposed by our board: to develop a specific growth strategy that responds to the health-related workforce needs and shortages of Kentucky. Additionally, to formalize, launch, and expand deeper connections with communities, the university, UK Healthcare, and UK's Cooperative Extension Service, which I think you know has offices in all 120 counties. And then to develop the plan for a second Healthy Kentucky research building to enhance discovery. And finally, we were charged very specifically to launch and expand a statewide network called Advancing Kentucky Together Network, to partner across the state with strategic partnerships like you've heard today. These strategic partnerships across so many organizations like those represented here today allow us to meet pressing needs that impact our communities, to advance what we do for everyone within Kentucky. Last March, we were joined by representatives from COSAIR for Kids to open the COSAIR for Kids Center for Safe and Healthy Children and Families, a clinical space for the treatment of children harmed by abuse and neglect. Today's announcement, without a doubt, as you just heard, is yet another example of the collective work that is improving the health and safety of our state. The collaborative efforts between the Kentucky Children's Hospital, the Office of the Attorney General, and others to launch the Kentucky Manual on the Investigation and Prosecution of Strangulation further positions UK Healthcare, and the Commonwealth of Kentucky as national leaders, as you just heard from the Attorney General, in the work to aid our children and our families. We have unmet health needs, without a doubt. Together, we have a responsibility to address those disparities and to advance Kentucky. That is the work that drives us, our people, our patients, and our partners. It is with partners like you that we can create significant impact. Thank you all.
Well, on the heels of speaking about CoSare for Kids, I'm going to introduce someone who we've gotten to know really well. And this organization honestly has a history that have been dedicated to children for decades. So Joseph Fons is the Grants Director for CoSare for Kids, Executive Advisor for the Office of the Attorney General. And we've heard a lot about how instrumental they've been and how much they give to the community. It's beyond this space. If you look at what CoSare for Kids does for the children of this state, it is absolutely amazing. And pretty much if you walk into any community, you will see some evidence of what they've done. So I would like now to introduce Joseph Fons.
Thank you very much, Dr. Day, and thank you, all of you, for being here today. I want to first start off by thanking Attorney General Coleman and your team, Dr. Howard and your team, and your leadership on this manual. This will play a vital role in keeping kids safe and holding perpetrators accountable for their actions. As the most comprehensive children's nonprofit in Kentucky and as a granting organization, I want to just take a moment and talk about something that is very important to us, and that's partnerships and teamwork. It's been mentioned several times the investment that CoSare for Kids has made in the CoSare for Kids Center for Safe and Healthy Children and Families. But I also want to discuss, over the last 5 years, we've invested $2.1 million in the operations that go on day to day in that center. And I say that that means nothing without the work that Dr. Howard and her team are doing in serving children every day. It takes multiple organizations, groups to really serve children and really, fight a cause. I also wanted to applaud Attorney General Coleman for his work. When I was in the Attorney General's office, I had the pleasure of working under Attorney General Cameron when he released the Child Abuse Prevention or the Child Abuse Prosecution Toolkit, and that was the first step. That really focused on the prosecutorial side of it, and under your leadership, we've really been able to bring in advocates, we've been able to bring in providers, and really get a wholesale framework of really how to treat these cases. So, again, partnerships are just extremely important, and I would encourage everyone to work together as opposed to working in your individual silos. It's only through these partnerships can we accomplish our goal to make Kentucky the safest place to raise a child in the country. Thank you.
All right, next I have the pleasure of introducing a rock star. She's not going to sing, but I will say that Dr. Howard has been transformational for the university, and I think that anytime that anything's come up to look at where this division's become, where it started and where it has come, it's unbelievable, and there's so many people that have contributed to that. I think when Mark Birdwhistle talks all the time, they're like, she's just amazing. She just is so dedicated to so many people. And really, it's a collaboration between the Department of Psychiatry, Department of Pediatrics, the College of Public Health, and the collaboration throughout the university that she has helped bring together, and a lot of her teams here. So anyway, with no further ado, I want to introduce Dr. Christina Howard. She's the Chief of the Division of Pediatric Forensic Medicine.
Thank you, everybody, and for everybody for being here. I am going to age myself a little bit, but over 10 years ago, as a fellow in child abuse pediatrics, I was rotating through the medical examiner's office, and I vividly recall an autopsy being performed on a young woman that had been found dead. She showed signs of sexual assault. However, from external observation, the cause of death was still unclear. And it wasn't until we closely examined the neck that we found a fractured hyoid bone. So that's a bone that's about 2 to 3 centimeters in the neck, whose fracture is commonly associated with strangulation. And it was in that moment in my fellowship that the realization that such a serious injury could have absolutely no external findings of neck trauma really sunk in. As a physician, absence of physical exam findings in an injury that can be fatal is terrifying. Even in fatal cases of strangulation, up to 40% may have no visible external injury of the neck. And that's because airway occlusion can occur with less force than a firm handshake. Arterial compromise, or blood flow to the brain, can actually occur with less force than it takes to open a soda can. Thus, investigation and care of patients who have experienced strangulation is incredibly important. Assessment for strangulation in children can be even more challenging, especially for those less than 4 years of age who are unable to verbally describe what happened. And oftentimes our team has to rely on their injuries to tell their story rather than their words. But we know that the absence of injury, especially in strangulation, does not rule out that act. That is why the 10-4 bruising rule, or bruising to the torso, ears, or neck, for children is so important, because when we do see injury, we know that we need to take that seriously. Strangulation happens at all ages and all socioeconomic classes, and it's an act of power and dominance from the perpetrator. This manual will better equip medical providers across the state with how to care for these victims. That is why I'm proud to have worked on this team of collaborators to develop this guide. Responding to Strangulation in Kentucky is a comprehensive manual that covers best practices for victims of strangulation and takes the much-needed holistic approach. Thank you to Attorney General Coleman for your leadership and dedications to resources for this project. And thank you for inviting us to collaborate on this team. And I can't say enough without shouting out to a couple of the team members that have worked and put countless hours towards this and really put up with having to continue to encourage me to finish my part. So Robin, Rira, Kathy, I know that other members of the team at AG's office has put in hundreds of hours for this to be completed. And I can't say thank you enough for all of that work. And thank you to CoSave for Kids for supporting our program in this, but all of our work in protecting children across the Commonwealth. And thank you to the dedicated, passionate team of contributors who came together to address this awful crime of strangulation in such an innovative and thorough approach with this Kentucky-specific manual. I can remember our first meeting and how exciting it was when everybody was bringing together ideas of what needed to be put in this manual, including, law enforcement and contact. How do we get schools involved so that they can notify that something happened in that home overnight? And that was something that just really opened my eyes, and I loved that collaboration that was coming to the table. We work in fields that can be incredibly challenging, sometimes very often overwhelming. But partnerships like this help me to feel encouraged that we truly can make a difference facing child abuse, domestic violence, and strangulation head on. Thank you.
Next, as we've talked about, the collaboration with our police force, and I think that's a key component of this. I would like to introduce Sergeant Sarah Mantle, joined the Louisville Metropolitan Police Department in 2012. She currently is an internal affairs investigator with the police department. Prior to her promotion in 2023, she was a detective in a special victims unit for 6 years, where she investigated felony and misdemeanor domestic violence cases in Jefferson County. She's a certified instructor through the Kentucky Law Enforcement Council. She continues her passion of promoting public safety, improving community trust, and supporting survivors of domestic violence by teaching domestic and dating violence topics to all members of the law enforcement community. Today's the first time I've met her, but I've heard about her before, so it is a great honor to introduce Sergeant Mantle.
Good morning. My name is Sarah Mantle, and I'm a sergeant with the Louisville Metro Police Department. It is an honor to share the stage with these partners because I know firsthand what this manual will do. With these pages come an incredible purpose. And as I flipped through the manual just a few minutes ago, I couldn't help but think, we did it. We did it. During my 6 years with LMPD Special Victims Unit, I have investigated thousands of cases of domestic and dating violence in Jefferson County. Before the strangulation statute in 2019, I saw firsthand the struggles the law enforcement community across Kentucky faced when investigating strangulations. There were no set rules, no guidance, no training. Officers were often instructed to charge assault fourth degree DV, a misdemeanor, or wanton endangerment in the first degree. However, officers often found it difficult to articulate how the act of strangulation could create a substantial risk of death or serious physical injury. This held especially true when there were no visible injuries, which was the case about half the time. Along with law enforcement, prosecutors shared similar frustrations. I heard it many times and probably said it myself. You know, the jury will never convict on a 1-1. And this was a hard pill I had to swallow at 3 in the morning in the fall of 2018. I was in U of L's emergency room, and I had just been called out on a DV strangulation where the victim was punched and strangled repeatedly by her husband until she lost consciousness. The case would be a hard one to take to a jury. Her only visible injuries were minor bruising and swelling to her cheeks and jaw. I clearly remember looking at her as I called the Center for Women and Families, knowing I had to find her as many resources as I possibly could, because the reality at the time was, if this case somehow made its way through the justice system, a felony conviction would be next to impossible. That's the way it was, and I was devastated. I had taken an oath to serve and protect, but in this case, as with so many other strangulation cases I took on, it just didn't seem that way. 2019 was an incredible year. That's when strangulation first and second degree became law in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. And as a detective in SVU, I had hope. Hope that overdue justice would get served on behalf of some of the strongest and most resilient members of our community, survivors of domestic violence. In the fall of 2019, the perpetrator in one of my first cases where I charged strangulation in the first degree had been arrested. And through jail phone calls, I learned that the defendant was concerned about this new felony charge, and that talk throughout the jail was that everyone is getting charged with strangulation. It was probably the first time I had ever felt a perpetrator of domestic violence was actually worried they were going to be held accountable for their actions, and that felt so good. I am so extremely proud of the work this team has put in to create the strangulation manual for the betterment of our incredible Commonwealth and the communities within. With this manual, law enforcement agencies across Kentucky will finally have direction when responding to and investigating strangulations. Training will be more consistent and victim-centered, and relations between law enforcement and survivors of domestic violence will continue to improve as officers learn the true dynamics involved in strangulations. On behalf of my brothers and sisters in blue and the victims I know this will benefit, to Attorney General Russell Coleman and his team and all those that made this possible, thank you.
So as we look out today and all of you that are able to participate, I look at just continued collaboration and continued growth. I feel like every time that we're up here doing an announcement, it's some other big announcement to invest. And whether it be from, with our partners at CoSara for Kids, Face It Movement, the Kentucky Youth Advocates, Attorney General Office, it's really this common goal. And as I was sitting here thinking, you think about the meaning or purpose, and a lot of that is you have to figure out something that just really just bothers you. And I think as when we was talking in the back, he mentioned that he was like, this has bothered me for a long time, and I was determined to do something about it. And really that is when you find a purpose where the end doesn't end in you. And that today, none of this ends in any of us, actually. It ends in the future of generations to come. Long after this press announcement, this is going to make a huge difference. So as we conclude today, I want to thank you each for coming. There'll be a short reception outside here that we would like for you to participate. Once again, thank you so much, Attorney General Coleman, your office. Thanks for the entire team. There's no greater honor than to be here today to introduce this event. Thank you. Also, we'll be open up for any questions as well. Sorry, I can't see.
So the question goes to the nature of being Attorney General that I didn't expect. And that is, I expected to be focused on 120 counties, and that's my job to serve. But I didn't expect that so much of this job was to deal with challenges that were so large that we worked with colleagues across the country. Attorneys General, our offices are regularly working with AG offices, whether it is our litigation in the opioid space against those that are poisoning our kids or have played a role in that, whether that is pushing back on TikTok or some of the social media entities that are using algorithms to target our kids. In so many areas in the law enforcement space, we're talking to AGs. I just returned from West Virginia to attend the inauguration of the new governor who was the Attorney General and the new Attorney General of West Virginia. And we spent a lot of time talking generally about collaboration. This manual was not tip of the sphere. Initially, we're talking a lot about our social media and opioid litigation. But what you have from me is a commitment that when I'm with my colleagues and when I'm talking with my colleagues, I'll have more than one copy of this. Because it is so nice for Kentucky to lead. It is so nice. We end up on the bottom so oftentimes of lists we want to be on the top of, and on the top of lists we want to be on the bottom of. And so I stand here in an institution whose core ethos is to be best in the country, is to mitigate challenge. I was privileged to go to school here as an undergraduate and to law school, and the core ethos of the University of Kentucky was to serve the Commonwealth. But as I'm learning, as I spend more time with President Capilouto and the current administration, the ethos of this place is to serve the nation. So it is such a privilege to be here. You have my commitment to talk about this quite a bit with my colleagues, brag on this quite a bit with my colleagues. And I talked generally about collaboration. I talked about collaboration in this space. But what you're finding is the public policy challenges that we're facing in the Commonwealth, the public safety challenges we're facing are so large. The criminal justice challenges, the organizations that are bringing the poison into this Commonwealth are so large that we're tearing down silos. We have to tear down silos, whether that is in law enforcement. And look, the biggest limiting factor to us in law enforcement, we need resources, of course, and personnel. But Sergeant, you may agree with me, the biggest limiting factor is what it says on our badge sometimes. We don't always work well with other agencies or other jurisdictions. Universities have not always worked well, even with universities, let's say right down I-64. And that's not the case now. That's not the case outside of athletics. You are seeing, with that one exception, I will tell you, I don't have a lot of blue ties. I have a lot of red ties just because of the nature, but I made sure that I dressed appropriately being here. So I look forward to talking about this quite a bit more, but that is the nature of public policy now in terms of mitigating challenge, in terms of dealing with challenge. It's how we tear down silos. And you're going to hear more of that because you're going to see more of that. Far from the happy talk of podiums like this, you're going to see that. That's what this institution is about, and that is just a tangible example of this degree of collaboration. Any other questions we can address? The question, if you didn't hear, is how we can measure success. First is how wide the distribution is. It's the education. There are many of these strangulations being prosecuted now since 2019. We have charged a number of these. But this is such a complex challenge because of the lack, oftentimes 40%, the lack of physical evidence. These cases can't just be arrested and charged. These have to be prosecuted in the right way, to present to juries in the right way. This is heavily detailed in what to look for, how to react, who to collaborate with, who to seek more information from that's not present now. So first and foremost, we're going to measure success by how widely we get this into the hands of prosecutors and chiefs and sheriffs. But that first and foremost, we can talk about data. How do you deter? Criminal justice, how do you deter some offenses? Does deterrence work? And those are robust conversations within criminologists. But our goal is for prosecutors and for law enforcement to just be more comfortable going forward with these felonies to get greater success. I look forward to more successful convictions. I think if we want to be data centric, we look at the numbers of successful convictions. Those are then used for deterrence purposes. Those are then used to try to educate that this conduct not only is not permissible here in this Commonwealth, to get victims to come forward. That's partially the role of this. As we see successful outcomes, we hope that is a virtuous cycle to get more victims to engage and to come forward with what we know, what conduct we know is occurring. Excellent. Thank you so much.